I have an update for you on the situation in Venezuela. It's almost more disturbing than the last update. Now, we know for a fact that the governor of Venezuela has offered up his island as a logistical hub for an humanitarian, quote unquote, fleet to restore democracy and the rule of law in Venezuela. Alongside the criminal Ledesma, he has made very, very aggressive statements. And the use of verbs, unlike in American culture, in Latin cultures, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, is very specific. And in this article here, the criminal Ledesma, the guy who would have himself be the appointed regent of Venezuela, said, quote, to the press, "A logistical operation will be launched from this Antillean island. Not could be, not might be, not should be, will be," meaning that the plans are already set and the wheels are turning. Now, we showed that here off of the northern coast of Venezuela, we see a strange paradigm. This tiny little fishing, sleeping, vacation community is overrun with these Strava heat signatures. And just real quick, Strava is just a company that tracks Fitbit devices. It doesn't matter whether they're American Fitbit devices. They don't even have to be Fitbit per se. They can just be devices like that. And they track them around the world. Anyone who wants to wear them, you can find these in every country. Strangely enough, though, when you look around down here, you don't see this paradigm showing up in other islands, like even Orchilla over here, there isn't any. And then these keys over here, there isn't any. And I'm sure there's vacationers over here scuba diving and all sorts of stuff. But strangely enough, directly north of Caracas, where you would expect, if Venezuela was expecting an invasion, this is where they would put forces. This is where they would maybe put S-400 emplacements, perhaps Chinese or Cuban or Russian naval assets. And you see a large amount here, a huge amount here, especially in between these two areas here. And some of these, like I said, these signatures are showing up literally in the water, which would make you believe that there's quite a few military assets out here. And the reason I say that is because of this over here. When we look at the airport, now this is the runway of the airport down there. And what we see is this stepped formation. Now what this shows is a lot of people using this runway as a workout facility. I'm sure out here, access to nice flat paved roads to go for a run is limited. I'm sure there's roads over here, but I'm sure they're not incredibly well maintained. But I'm sure this runway is, and it would make an excellent place to work out. It's just not long enough to go for a really long run, so what you do is you run in formation like this to maximize the distance. This is a trick the military uses. We used to do this all the time. So clearly, this is military. Now, also, what have we been able to show with marine traffic? I had a wonderful contributor bring this to my attention, and I've actually been able to build on it a little bit. Now, when you go to marine traffic here, you see all of these different ships. Every color means a different type of ship. They have to broadcast not only where they are, but their course, their speed, and the type of vessel they are. And you can take out the filters, and we're going to do this again real quick. All right, we're going to take out cargo vessels. Let's see if I can get this over here in the shot. Take out all the green for cargo vessels, standard cargo ships. Take out the red for the tankers, the blue for the passenger vessels. Get rid of high-speed craft. Get rid of the tugs and special craft. The fishing boats are gone. The pleasure craft's gone. And now, of course, we're going to get rid of the navigation aids These are the AIS base stations. What's left are military. And what do we see? We see a fleet that is growing literally by the hour. We covered this yesterday, and the fleet's even bigger than it was last night. We have see 4, 8, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 20, 24. And then we have 25, 26. We have 27. We have 28 here. We have a lone ship out here, and now the new information that we have is a secondary fleet that's been discovered hovering off the eastern coast of Venezuela in 2 groupings. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in this grouping and 7 in this grouping. So 16 more for a grand total, if I've done the math right, of 45 ships now. 45 military ships off the eastern and northern coast of Venezuela. I'm going to try to zoom out and see if we can get both fleets in one picture. Yeah, there we go. We have the Northern Assault Force here, and we have the Eastern Assault Force over here. And that's what it's going to take. Now, I'm still kind of scratching my head about whether these are coalition or whether these are Russian-Chinese, meaning that it could be a defense force. But I'm leaning more toward invasion force. Because we know, and we've established, that there was this massive military exercise in Venezuela that involved over 100,000 different Cuban, Chinese, and Russian forces that took place along the 2,000-mile border of Venezuela and Colombia. So this could just be a response. I've long made the allegation that I thought World War III was going to start right here, because people are just uneducated about Venezuela. They do not understand. They only know what the mainstream media has spoon-fed them in the last 3 to 4 years. They don't understand that prior to that, the 2000 to 2012 timeframe, prior to when Mr. Chavez was murdered, Venezuela saw the greatest increase in the standard of living of any Latin American country. Prior to him taking power, they had 80% poverty. Yet even with that 80% poverty, they still were a top 5 exporter of oil in the world. Basically because U.S. oil companies went down there and turned that company into a plantation. That country into a plantation. Basically, it was an oil plantation. They used the people as slaves in the 80s and 90s to get rich. And when Chavez took over and kicked all of them out and nationalized all this and started reinvesting that money into Venezuela, all of a sudden people had homes. People started living lives like you and I do, going to the grocery store, educating their kid, getting medical care. And of course, there's a certain tribal group of candy men that in this country couldn't have that. So now they want to put Venezuela back under the thumb. And because Venezuela has decided to use a cryptocurrency and use a currency that's not pegged to the dollar anymore, they now have labeled this country as some imminent threat. Which I suppose, since the U.S. is propped up by the petrodollar, that might be some convoluted case they could make there. But had the U.S. taken the time to rein in big U.S. oil going down there, we might see a different outcome today. It's one of the reasons they fly F-16s. They used to be our friend. 4th largest gold mine in the world down there. At one time, by far, including Brazil, the wealthiest country in all of South America. And that had nothing to do with capitalism. It had to do with this tiny, tiny, tiny country that's up to 30 million people now, but during that time it was about 20. Smaller than Florida, smaller than California, but exporting oil at the rate of countries like Russia, the United States, Canada, Mexico, that had hundreds of millions of people. I didn't want to make this some education session about Venezuela, but these people used to be our friends, and all they're trying to do now is protect their sovereignty from globalists. But we know what we have in the White House now, don't we? Pretty clear, isn't it? Let's see, less than 2 years. We've lost 4 soldiers in Africa. We've had 2 forays into Syria. Yeah, let's see, Yemen, and now this. So yeah, so much for your idea of big globalist deep state arrests. What a fucking joke. I'm sorry, but that's what you people are. You're a joke. Anybody who supports the U.S. administration as it is just willing, blind acolytes. So once again, let's see if the Armada has grown just in the time we were speaking. Let's see, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Let's see, 20, 25, 26, 27. Got one here, 28, 29, 30. And then right here off the eastern coast, let's see what we have here. We got 7 over here. So that's 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46. So it looks like it's grown by 1 just since the video started. It's not going to be long now before they kick this off. They're going to hit them from 2 different sides. They're going to hit them from naval assets will probably hit from the north and from the east, and probably ground assets will move in from the west in Colombia. And possibly they're probably going to take advantage of Mr. Temer in Brazil, still barely holding on to power, because the elections are 2 days away, the first round of elections, and I wouldn't be surprised if the U.S. has orchestrated some kind of nonsense to have Bolsonaro take 50% in the first round, which no poll has him doing. Because if it goes to a second round, they know he's going to lose. So, anyway, we will leave it there. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time.